Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Community America Credit Union. My guest today has a brand new book out and a story that truly is, I think, a miraculous one of recovery, certainly one of triumph, one that certainly he never expected to take this route. But as I told him before we came on, he has an amazing journey and in many ways one that is just beginning. But my guest is named Montee Ball. And I'll say this first and foremost, having been in the television business for 26 years, I'm not the fan that I once was. I'm too close to it. So I process games differently than a fan. It's not a fun way to go about it, but it's the greatest job, and that's the price to pay. It's some sacrifice with the family, and you just see the game differently. You're not as rabid of a fan. So I really allow myself one team or entity to let those emotions go. And that's my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin. I'm still not as good a fan as other people. I'm too rational, I guess. You know, the beauty of being a fan is that you're not supposed to be rational. I hear from all of them on Twitter all the time, by the way, too. It can be very entertaining and sometimes not so much. But Montee Ball was a superstar running back at the University of Wisconsin after my time when I'd gone to school there and later worked there, but among a long line of running backs that have come through and will continue to come through Wisconsin, where they have the greatest offensive linemen. You can tell they're all from Wisconsin or somewhere like that, these big 300-pounders, and running backs go there, star running backs go there, and they have amazing talent, and they have an amazing line, and many of them go on to the NFL, and that was the case for Montee Ball. But then there were some snags along the way. Life changes, and he has a new book out about that right now called Nowhere to Run, Discovering Your True Self in the Midst of an Addiction. And I'm so excited. Really had never met him before, just exchanged some Twitter messages, but I feel like I know him because he's so open with everything that he has done. As a matter of fact, I think when I reached out, he said, I'm an open book, ask me anything. So I'm really happy right now to be joined by Montee Ball. And I'll go a step further. Not only are we both former Wisconsin Badgers, he with talent on the field, me holding a microphone, but he grew up in the St. Louis area, which is where I went after Madison to work. And I certainly knew about Montee Ball, the high school running back as well. Montee, thanks for joining Rounding the Bases. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited to be here. It's always a blessing. It most definitely is. Wonderful intro, by the way, too. I'm loving this already.
Well, thank you. I'm so inspired by your story, but I think it's cool too. Like, I mean, you know, as a proud alum of Wisconsin, I'm just always happy when I see guys make it and play on Sunday, because, you know, we have pride in our school, and we're not Alabama, we're not Clemson. We've gotten close, but we're not quite along those lines. But we know. Look, my freshman year was Barry Alvarez's first year as head coach, and we were 1-10. So, you know, when I got to Wisconsin, football was terrible, and then for years and years to this day, it's a top 10 team. It's on the map. So it was great seeing you make the NFL, and then you weren't in the NFL. And I know this didn't go as planned, but yet you have a beautiful story to tell that is helping so many others. So I've given away a little bit, but not a lot. I'll let you pick up the story. I mean, how crazy has this life been for you?
Oh my goodness, man. It's they always say it's a journey, and that's for sure, but you learn so much about yourself going throughout the adversity, going throughout things that you have to face and overcome. You really understand, you have the moments to understand who you are as a person, and all of the above. So it's a very beautiful and therapeutic process. But I'm so blessed to be on the other end of it, coming out of it, and kind of this redeveloped, in a sense, this new form of myself. It's exciting.
Was the dream growing up to play on Sundays?
Yes. Yeah. I've been a Denver Broncos fan since the age of 8. And I told my father at 8 that I walked in and I saw him watching football. I had no idea about the sport. And I just started badgering him with a bunch of questions. And before I knew it, I told him, well, I want to be a running back for the Denver Broncos, because I fell in love with Terrell Davis back in 1998. And so from there on, I was like, that's what I want to do. And I'm blessed to have accomplished that.
See, not that all my audience is in Kansas City, but I've got a large audience in Kansas City. So I'll apologize for everybody that he loved his Broncos, because that's sacrilege here in Kansas City. But listen, most fans, maybe not the extreme irrational ones, most fans love a good person. They love hard work. They love people that sacrifice and pay their dues. And you have. Did I see? Were you born in the state of Kansas or no? Did I see that?
Correct. Yeah, I was actually born in McPherson, Kansas. McPherson, well, what have you. But at the age of 2, I moved to the area, Wentzville, Missouri. So, I was born there, but am I really from there? Not really.
Right.
Left at 2, so I don't really know much of it.
That's just where it lists on
Exactly.
everything of where you were born. Wentzville is on the outskirts of St. Louis, on the far western portion, I guess, of the St. Louis area. I know that area very well and covered all the high schools and all that stuff over the years. Some unbelievable talent has come out of the St. Louis area, including some great players in the NFL and other sports for that matter right now. So you end up at Wisconsin, one of the best college running backs, not just of when you were there, but in the history of the NFL, and you're scoring touchdowns at an unbelievable rate. I could hear the voice of the Badgers, Matt LePay, touchdown, Montee Ball, and then you get drafted and you end up with your team.
Yes.
And I know there was a lot of other stuff going on. We'll get to that. But that truly in the moment has to be the definition of a dream come true.
Yeah, it was a very surreal moment, and it's still to this day. I mean, I try my best to attach words to that moment of getting drafted to my childhood team, but I still struggle at times because what are the chances of, and I even have this in my book, a photo of me when I was young wearing a Terrell Davis jersey. What are the chances of you making a promise to yourself at the age of 8 and getting drafted to that same team? We all understand that when it comes to draft time, usually the quarterbacks are the only ones, and it rarely happens. The quarterbacks are really the only ones who got the power to say, I really don't want to play there. But that's very rare that it happens, especially running backs. Well, running backs don't do that. We go where we fit in. And so to be able to say that I was drafted by my favorite team is a blessing. It really, really is. And I can't write that. It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, it's a storybook, although I guess in the movies, there always has to be some kind of trial and tribulation. And this is certainly not the way that you planned it out. But I mean, let's give people an idea here. I mean, the numbers that you were putting up in high school, in college, elite. Oh, by the way, also, I believe a great student. I mean, you had everything going for you. And yet, and I don't know, were you ever right at all at any moment in Denver, or?
No.
Never.
By the time I got to Denver, literally even year 1, it was already too late. My substance abuse was through the roof. That being alcoholism, depression, anxiety. I didn't take care of it in college, but I talk about that a lot where, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't understand what I was dealing with. So of course I didn't understand how to even talk about it or even who to talk to about it. So it was a very challenging time. And obviously, all of that going undiagnosed for so long, it just compounds and compounds. And obviously we all understand that alcoholism is a slippery slope for depression. They go hand in hand. And so it all came to a point once I got to the league.
And I have to imagine too, I mean, everything, at least on the surface, is going perfectly at Wisconsin, right? I mean, 2-time All-American, Heisman Trophy finalist, all Big Ten champion, Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, on and on. And so I'm wondering too, because I've said this forever, and saying it more now because we're finally at a point where the stigma of mental health it's not gone, but we've come a long ways. And I believe that it is role models like you that help with that, because you're the guy, and this is wrong, but you're the guy, and I'm talking about superstar athletes, that's put on a pedestal that everything must be perfect. And what I always try to tell people is you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. The superstar athletes, superstar actors, I assume, the biggest name CEOs, whoever it is, everybody's got stuff. And they're not going to come out and tell everybody about it. You happen to be telling everybody about it now, and you lived it. But was there you had to have known things weren't totally right, but yet when everybody's pumping you up and you're getting results and you're dominating on the field and the NFL dream is still alive, I've got to imagine that it's very easy to convince yourself otherwise.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is what I talk about a lot. Is I almost wish, obviously looking back, I almost wish that I didn't perform as well in college football, so I may have saw like the red flag there. But there were many times in college where I was starting to realize that I was building quite a strong relationship with alcohol, and I started to develop that sense of, okay, it's starting to make me feel good. I no longer have to worry. That anxiety seems to disappear or lift off my shoulders when I'm intoxicated. So while I was going through the depths of alcoholism, struggling with that, I was still performing at an extremely high level on the field. So I would always then tell myself, well, obviously, there's nothing wrong. Now let's pair the state of Wisconsin with this. Madison, everybody's drinking. It's the norm. So there wasn't really a time for me to be like, okay, this is a huge problem, because again, performing at a high level, everybody else drinking just as much as me. So very difficult for me to sit. It was very difficult for me to say I had a problem in college.
Well, and then it's validated or not validated when the Denver Broncos say it. They didn't know, did they, going in?
Not going in. They did at the end.
I know they did at the end.
Yep.
Because I covered the NFL for a lot of years back, probably in your childhood. I was there when Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk showed up on the scene, and actually I remember Trent Green got hurt, and I was the sideline reporter in that preseason game, and I remember asking Dick Vermeil, "What do you do now?" And he goes, "We got Kurt Warner," and I was thinking, "Oh, okay." Yeah, seems like a nice guy, but not little did I know he'd be a Hall of Famer. He was a nice guy, still is. But I was there for all that, and I know even back then, the amount of homework they do on players, they dig into every bit.
Oh yeah.
But that to me is almost yet another reminder of how easy it must have been, if you could perform at that level, to hide all of that.
Yeah, it's as you stated, it's an invasive process. Which is understandable. I mean, they're going to make a huge investment on you. I get it, but yeah, when I look back now and watch videos, YouTube videos of me talking and stuff post game, maybe during the week leading up to the game, I did a really great job of hiding it, and I now know why I was doing that, or how I came about, masking it so well. Is I wanted to make sure that my parents didn't worry. We had conversations, of course, about my drinking. But again, as a teenager, you feel as if you have all the answers, of course, and you don't want to always receive lessons from your parents. So I shielded them a bit. And then as I kept getting awards after awards after awards, it was like, okay, here, mom and dad, look, boom, look, boom. I'm still taking care of my business. So yeah, it's like I said, therapeutic process, because now being on the other end, I'm blessed to be on the other end. I can now look back and hopefully take my lessons and teach others.
So before I get into the book, and I'm sure you wrote about all this too, but what was the tipping point? I mean, I know in reading, I think I read an article recently that, you're showing up to, like, football is a sport of a lot of meetings, a lot of film study. Right. I mean, football meets more than any sport, I believe.
Yep.
Baseball doesn't have those type of meetings. You can't. It's every day you'll wear people out. But football is known for those intense meetings and film sessions. And hey, every now and then a guy falls asleep, and that's a no-no. But you're showing up to that stuff not always sober, I don't think.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, When did they start to know? When did you start to know?
Yeah. Really the tipping point was essentially when the cat was out the bag, when my running backs coach in the league, after our individual meeting, actually. So we had our team meeting, then we broke up into our individual groups. So I went to the running backs groups, of course, in our meeting. And after that meeting, he pulled me to the side and told me that he could smell it on me. He could smell alcohol on me, and it was like 7 a.m. On like a Wednesday or something like that. So he also went about telling me that if I need any help, he can help me. He can reach out. But again, I think it's important for folks who are not in sports to understand this, that you fear for your job. Where's the anonymity at? If I am to tell him about my problem, he has to keep his job too. So if I fumble, if I miss a blocking assignment, if I uh whatever, he's got to make a decision to pull me out. But obviously if he gets questioned by his boss, I'm sure he would tell him. So I was a little nervous, but looking back, I wish I would have taken it. I wish I would have taken the help.
So the NFL career pretty quickly went away, which,
Yeah.
first off, the NFL career is we only talk about the guys that make it a long time. I remember I've heard it over the years. The longevity of, say, an NFL running back is not very long. The pounding you guys take, not to mention the head and what we've learned about CTE and all of that, that's a different discussion for a different day. But if you realized your dream, at least initially, I think, and I'll let you pick it up, it came crashing down quickly, right?
It did. Yeah, it was very quick. Very fast I went about, because, obviously if I wasn't practicing, if I wasn't in meetings or whatever, I was partying. So time was just extremely accelerated. And before I knew it, I was getting that phone call from LA. The second time around, first time was good news. Second time was bad news. And that presented many more emotions. Everything was heightened. And the one that was heightened the most was anger. I was angry at myself for allowing alcohol to deter me from staying on my dream. Because that's the realization. That's the moment where actually prior to me getting released, I knew I have a drinking problem. So I was angry for about 24 months for sure, leading up to that moment.
So you knew it was coming at some point.
I did. And again, I was angry, but once it happened, it became even more heightened. And again, in the NFL, if you're playing a significant amount of time in the third preseason game, fourth preseason game, back then, of course, okay, you're either going to be 53 man on the roster, 52 or 51. They're trying to literally find you a spot. So the writing was on the wall and I saw it.
What did it take for you, Montee, to get the help, and to me, you're an amazing success story, which I think is important to tell people, because as sports fans, we all make the mistake, media too, of judging an athlete based on their results, which is fair to some extent.
Yeah.
But it's very short-sighted as well. I mean, there are greater things than sports. I say that as a guy that has made my living in sports for over a quarter of a century. And I know for a fact, without really knowing you, that you'll make a greater impact in life doing what you're doing now than what you ever could have done in the NFL. I know there's more money in the NFL and all that kind of stuff, but I ask people all the time about purpose.
Yeah.
I wrote about it in my book. What's your purpose? And it's a hard thing to find, right? Like if I were to ask you what your purpose was when you were playing in the NFL, I don't know if you'd have that answer or not. It took me a lot of years to find out my purpose in broadcasting, which I've come to understand is providing a distraction and entertainment for people that are going through tough times, and to be able to get away from life a little bit, and troops overseas and all that. I didn't know that when I was young.
Right.
But you have this unbelievable purpose now in life that is so much bigger than anything you could have done in the NFL. So before we get to what that purpose is, what was the drop dead, that's it, it's over, I can't do this anymore point for you?
Oh, Oh, that's easy for me. That was when my son was born. So I'll be 5 years sober August 1st of this year, and my son was born in 2016, 5 years ago. Um, to all the parents out there, you guys, you know what I'm talking about. When you have a child, it's different. It's you pick them up, you can feel that transfer of energy. You know now that every single decision that you're going to make is going to directly impact another human being. You got to be healthy, your mind, spirit, soul, etc. So my son literally saved my life and is my greatest blessing ever. And he doesn't understand that now, but he will. Um, and other things as well too. I don't want to go back to jail. So I don't want to go back to jail. I was in jail for 3 days, and I remember the very vividly. I remember taking my socks off and my feet touching the ground while I was changing into the jumpsuit, and how cold it was. How cold it was as I was putting things on, and I do not want to feel that feeling again. And how funny! Ever since I stopped drinking, I have not ran into the police.
Hmm. So by the way, the story about your son is so powerful. I mean, one of my early guests on this podcast, and I wrote about him in my book, is a man named Wesley Hamilton. It's not all athletes on the show.
Nice.
It's usually not athletes, as a matter of
Nice.
fact. And Wes was a guy that grew up in a bad part of Kansas City, and he just believed that as a young black man, the way he grew up, that his time would come early, and that was the way it was supposed to be. And he was shot and paralyzed and was ready to give up, but he had a daughter, and he didn't want to get out of the hospital bed. He didn't want to, but he's in a wheelchair, and she's calling it, I think, like his superpower, and he knew that he had to live for her. And his story now, I mean, he was on the Netflix show Queer Eye, and he's changing the community, and on and on. I mean, it's like, this is what I see with you. It's a different story, but it's the same story in the sense of the power of what your children can bring you.
Oh yeah.
Without your son, who knows if you suddenly become used to that cold floor? Maybe not. Maybe that would have been enough. But what I do know is that you're now changing other people's lives. And that gets to the purpose question. What is your purpose now in life? And it has to be so different than scoring touchdowns.
I love this, man. I love this. Yeah, if you would ask me this back then, I would have, if I did have something to say, it would have been to be a Hall of Famer running back in the NFL. And that would have been it. But I truly believe that everything had to happen the way that it happened. And when I say that, I don't want people to interpret it as I had to physically hurt somebody in order to get to where I'm at. No, I had to face my rock bottom, face the music in order to get to where I'm at today. So my purpose, I truly believe that I was given the abilities to play football for this platform to speak on something way greater than myself, something that every single household deals with, either indirectly or directly, and to provide that hope and encouragement for others to talk about it, break down the stigma, bring up awareness on it, just so that we can lift the overall consciousness when we talk about mental health, because we all deal with it. So that is what my purpose is.
Everyone does. I mean, it's, there's different levels, obviously, but look, and, as your son gets older, that becomes scarier too. Like I'm just telling you that, not as a warning or anything like that, but just life. I mean, I have teenagers now, and my wife always says, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. Right. And so it's just, I mean, your parents went through that with you, and it's just, but that's what we live for too. I mean, that's the beauty of all of it. That's again, that same motivation that you had. Is he a Montee as well, or no?
No, his name is Maverick.
Okay, Maverick. Oh, I like that.
Maverick. It embodies his personality too. He's extremely independent. He's love him to death. Love him to death. He's full personality, and I cannot wait till the day. I can't. I want him to slow down. He's going too fast. But when that day comes where he understands how important he is to my life, that's going to be such a blessing. I'm going to love it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah, slow it down. There's no rush. There
You
really
right?
isn't. I mean, we
Exactly.
want to, I want them to do this. Stop doing this. I want you to do that. And they're like, I wish we could go back to that.
Yes.
Before we talk about the book, no, actually, let me hit the book first before I ask you my baseball themed questions. How special is this book for you to be able to put yourself out there? I mean, I thought it was funny when we exchanged messages. You said I'm an open book, and you literally are now an open book because it's all there, in writing, and people can find that at monteeball.com, MonteeBall.com. Tell me about the book and the process.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So it's crazy. I started writing back in late November of 2016. So it's been a very long process because I was writing. So I started writing because my therapist told me he noticed that I was struggling with interpreting my past, my mistakes, football, understanding who I am as a person. So he said, you know what, just start writing, just write in the journal. And before I knew it, in 2018, I had about 60 to 70,000 words. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. I may have something here. Then I met up with an editor and we started working on some things. And before I knew it, got myself a book. Nowhere to Run. And honestly, it's a story about, it highlights my journey to the NFL and all of life's lessons that I had to learn along the way. A lot of lessons that I had to learn. And again, I'm encouraging people to speak out, open up, go seek help if you need. I talk about toxic masculinity to us men, because we are not encouraged to become vulnerable. We're not encouraged to say, you know what, I don't have the answers. We're not encouraged to cry and all of that. And obviously that bottles up and overflows. So I'm looking forward to the feedback of my story, because I'm just hoping and praying that it's well received, and that people can use it for their own light if they need to.
And again, people can go to monteeball.com, MONTEE, monteeball.com. Well, we'll touch on the book again in a moment, but let me hit you with my baseball theme questions. By the way, did you ever play any baseball growing up or no?
I wish I did, man. It's funny. Just about 20 minutes ago, I was playing this show with
Who doesn't?
No Sean Moreno, so I was playing against him. But no, I did not. But I wish I did. I actually really am starting to enjoy the sport.
It's different, but I always say, like, baseball has some of the cat and mouse and the strategy that you see in football, especially with offensive line and just all these little intricacies. I think that's probably true in any sport and anything in life. But who's not playing the show nowadays? Well, I don't know if I'm too old. My son's too advanced for me to be able to want to play anything against him. I was sitting in my apartment my senior year in 1994 in Madison playing like Sega Genesis or whatever the thing was back then. But that's what we did in 1994. All right, so the baseball themed questions. What would you say career-wise now or in life? And I guess we've probably talked about a lot of it. What's the biggest home run that you've hit?
Yeah, biggest home run for me. Obviously outside of my healthy child and the book, I would have to say the biggest home run is overcoming alcoholism, at least getting on the path of continuing to overcome it, because it's going to be a lifelong journey until I'm in the ground. But that was my biggest hurdle, and I'm happy that I was able to come out this other end. Didn't do it by myself, of course, but it does start with me.
And then the swing and the miss. What's the biggest swing and miss you've taken, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest swing and miss, I think, for me is going about college, going about the NFL with an ego. I felt that's what I needed in order to be the dominant player. And again, you won't see that side of me in the interviews. And again, not an egotistical like maniac to where I was very arrogant and rude, but just not taking any sort of advice from people who have failed before me and overcame their failures, etc. So thinking that I had all the answers. That's my swing and miss. And I learned a lot from that, of course.
Well, there's a growing up process for all of us, for sure. And I can only imagine what that is like when you are literally the big man on campus.
Yeah.
Well, literally you were. I mean, you're big, you're a big dude. But I mean, in terms of, look, when you're carrying the ball the way you did on campus at Wisconsin, whatever you want, it's yours, right? I mean, that's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, man. My face was on the campus bus. So I hope that we really keep this light on mental health awareness, and start to help our student athletes, help out everybody. Make it known.
And then the third baseball theme question is small ball. And I love this because I always say in baseball terms, we love the home run.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to broadcast with the Royals when, they're the small market team that wins a world championship. And they didn't do it by hitting home runs. Yeah, they hit some. They did it with the defense. They did it with the stolen bases. They did it with the bunts. And that to me is life. Like we all want that big moment, right? Football terms, we all want that touchdown. But what's going on in the trenches? What's going on in the film room? That's small ball to me in terms of sports. What is small ball to you in terms of life?
Oh man, this was my favorite question. It's still going back to my therapist. Still sitting in that same chair that I sat in back in 2016. Obviously, at first it was weekly, 2 times a week for about 2 years, 3 years. Now it's once a month, but I still go back. And that's what happens behind closed doors. That's what a lot of people don't know. And I'm at a very healthy place to where I technically I'm good right now, but I just want to make sure that I do not look back. So that's what my answer is to that, is still walking back into my therapist's office.
I think there's something there too. I mean, I don't want to get into personal stuff on my end, which is I should, because you're being very open, but it's not about me. It's about someone else. And
Yeah.
having gone through some mental health issues and, depression and anxiety. And I remember at the time getting some advice from someone else that said, you're going to look back and say, I can't believe the progress. And so that's what I was thinking about as I heard you. Like if I were to have told you, 6, 7 years ago that you would be weaning off or going to less therapy because you could handle that. And like if I were to show Montee Ball 7 years ago where you are today, it would have been hard to believe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that for sure. I was in a very dark place. Very, very dark place. And that's just what it's all about, man. It's no longer about me. For one, it's about my son. Of course, I'm a parent, so it'll always be him first. But it's about others who are suffering in silence, man. I know folks right now to this day, first and last names, that are struggling with stuff, but just, are not taking that leap of faith. That's essentially what it is. And you just got to do it. Just got to do it.
That's so powerful. And I want anyone that's hearing this right now to share it. Just share it with others because there's hope out there. And again, I mean, it's, I compliment guys like you, men and women that'll put themselves out there because it helps normalize what has always been taboo to talk about. We're getting closer. We really are. I mean, man, I've seen
Naomi Osaka's a big name right now.
Yes.
And what she's been talking about. I love it.
Yeah.
That's what I talk about in my story. Social anxiety. Alcohol is my social lubricant.
Wow. All right, I want to hit you with 4 final questions. I do this as we wrap it up. Sometimes lighthearted, sometimes not. But I mean, I don't want to make everything so heavy. I'm so moved by your story in the best of ways. But I do want to ask you about something that's popped up very recently here involving the Supreme Court and NCAA college athletics. And this has gone on since the beginning of time. We've never seen anything like this, that suddenly, this college sports, especially college football, college basketball, more than just those two sports. They've got athletes. You were one of them that are making the powers that be millions, billions of dollars, and you get nothing for it. And then people say, wow, they got a free education. Well, education is expensive, but not at the level of what you guys were bringing in. What did you think of the recent Supreme Court decision?
I'm in favor of it, of course. I'm in favor of it. I just hope that, I got to do more research on it, but what makes me nervous is some of these players can make a significant amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope, as a fan now of the sport, I hope that doesn't change the camaraderie. You know what I mean? If the quarterback or the star running back is rolling up to practice in a Rolls Royce at 19 or 20, I hope that doesn't impact the camaraderie of the team, of the spirit of the game, etc. But I'm in favor of it for sure. I think that these players, at the very least, which obviously is what's going to happen, is they need to get paid for their likeness. They need to receive some form of compensation for the use of their face, etc.
Because right now they could use your likeness and you don't get a penny for it still, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So on the flip side of that, yeah, I hope that, and probably not some grandfathered in program. Oh my goodness, man. Oh my goodness. I think about it now. I talk to my guy, some of my guy friends now, and they're just like, man, you would have made it killing back then. I'm like, yeah, I would have, but everything had to happen the way that it did.
Yeah, it did. Timing and life, and that's the way it goes. But
yeah.
So the second question, as we round the bases, I mean, NFL, it was your dream, and you got there.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, as I mentioned before, and as you mentioned, the NFL gave you a platform to do something you never imagined, which is so much more powerful than running on Sundays and running for touchdowns. But all the glory, at least the end zone, pay dirt, 70, 80,000 fans.
Oh yeah,
Bronco fan base, and all of that. How did you replace that adrenaline?
That was what I struggled with once I stopped. It's really hard to replicate that. It's really hard to get that release of endorphin, serotonin, whatever you want to call it, because you really can't replicate that in corporate America. Imagine running into work and 80,000 people there screaming your name. But for me, like I said, the timing of my son was perfect. Was perfect because now when he runs and hugs me, when he smiles, when I just hear his voice, I get that same effect.
Maverick going to play football or no?
Great question. It's funny that you asked that. So his side of the family, his mother's side of the family, they're really into baseball. She used to work for the Rockies, so they are a baseball family, and I'm all for that. If it's going to be baseball, great. If it's even going to be a sport, if it's going to be baseball, awesome. Soccer. But yeah, it'll be very hard for me to say no to him if he wants to play football, because he's obviously going to become aware of my past.
Okay. Yep. Which will be a good thing for him too when the time is right, I think. Third question as we round the bases. There'll be one more football question. What was your favorite ever moment on the field?
Oh, it's easy. Big Ten championship game 2011 against Michigan State. Russell Wilson, myself, his pass to Duckworth, and an amazing game. I love it because earlier that year they beat us in a Hail Mary. Last play of the game and beat us, knocked us out the national championship game. And then we got our revenge in the Big Ten championship.
Love it. I guarantee I was watching it every year. I'm just sick of watching, Big Ten championship losses to Ohio State, but that's just my gripe. I just want to get past that. Can we get past that?
That's an entirely different podcast, man, because I can go on forever about that. We need to be more aggressive with recruiting. We need to stop fighting for second place.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to stop being content, be aggressive, run the score up on folks. Let's just get that.
Stop being so nice.
Yeah, get that demeanor, get that.
Yeah.
Run 50, 60, 70 points on somebody, because now the other team that you're going to play on the road is going to see that. You gotta. Yeah. It's mind games too.
Yeah. Our quarterback, I say I'm the Badger forever. Our quarterback is from my kid's high school here in Kansas City.
Oh, wow.
Graham Mertz.
Wow. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Mertz is from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So my son didn't, he was a freshman when Graham was, I think, a junior, and then he left, or senior, and then he left early. And I remember one off season, my son, he texted me. I'm in the middle of a meeting, so I do a lot of corporate speaking. It's baseball off season, so I'm sitting there, networking with someone or whatever, and I see the text, and it was like middle of school day. He's like, "Oh crap," and I'm like, "It probably wasn't that word," and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong? Do I need to stop this meeting and call him?" And I'm like, "No. If it was something really wrong, he'd call his mom. This is going to be sports related." So after the meeting's over, I'm like, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I just saw Jim Harbaugh walking through the hallways. They're trying to steal Graham."
That's such a worthy text too, because
Yeah.
how could you imagine that? You're just walking, bell rings, you're going to your locker to get your books or what have you, and all of a sudden you see Harbaugh. Just
You see Harbaugh.
I'll
Right.
be like, what? I mean, I
Because
was
everybody was
ecstatic.
on to him late. Alabama was trying to get him. Michigan was. I'm getting off track here, but it was just fun, and like, here's my kid's going to Kansas next year. He just graduated high school, so he's going to KU. But
There you go.
he's been a Badger football and basketball fan since the day he can remember rooting for sports. And so finally now here's the superstar of his school going to Wisconsin, and Jim Harbaugh showing up. Come on,
Yeah.
you can't do that. So
Right.
fortunately, it all worked out. All right, I'm way off track here, so let's wrap it up with my walk off question. I know I could talk Badger stuff with you all day long, but I don't know that my audience is looking for that. So the walk off question is this: now, where do you go forward? You've got the book, you have a voice, you have a platform. It's former NFL player, which is a good thing because it gives you a voice that others don't have. How far can you take this?
As far as I want, and I want to take it far. I really, really do. To having in-person workshops with high schools, to having in-person ceremonies where I bring in local providers, have them share what they can provide. Talk about emotional intelligence with our youth. Obviously, talk about substance abuse. Talk about recovery, and then at the end, I present as well. So I'm going to take this pretty far, man.
Yeah, everybody should check out more on Montee, not just the book, but everything that he's doing. It's monteeball.com, MONTEEBALL.com. Has a podcast called Untapped Keg, a recovery coach trainer, and just doing so many things, not to mention the brand new book, Nowhere to Run, Discovering Your True Self in the Midst of an Addiction. You can find that at monteeball.com or on Amazon and all the other places, I believe, that you get the book. You can follow him on social media. That's how I started following some of this journey beyond just the football field. So, Montee, I'm so glad that we were able to connect. I'm so glad that you were willing to spend the time, and I wish you nothing but success in your new purpose in life and the impact that you're making, not just on Maverick as a proud father, but on so many other kids and adults for that matter. Thank you so much for spending time.
Thank you, Joel. This was awesome, and I wish you nothing but great success as well.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Montee.
All right. Thank you.